Captain Lee Tejo stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel Harmony's Edge, watching the stars through the large front window. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, but he did not care. Today was different. Today, every major alien species in the galaxy had asked to speak with humanity at the same time. In 47 years since humans joined the galactic community, nothing like this had ever happened. The insectoid Vectari usually avoided the reptilian saurians. The gas-dwelling nebula folk never spoke directly to solid matter species. Yet here they all were, waiting in a massive fleet outside human space. "Captain," called Ambassador Yoon, Mira from her station. "The transmission is coming through now." Lee turned to face the main screen. The image that appeared made him step back. Dozens of alien faces filled the display, creatures of every shape and size imaginable. Some had too many eyes. Others had no eyes at all. But they all shared the same expression. Fear. A tall, insect-like being stepped forward. Lee recognized the species, Vectari, one of the oldest races in the galaxy. When it spoke, its voice came through the translation device as a deep, serious tone. "Humans of Earth," the alien said, "we bring you a warning. The most terrible enemy our galaxy has ever known has awakened. We call them the Devourers." Ambassador Yoon Mira leaned forward in her chair. She had studied alien languages for 20 years, but she had never heard this tone of absolute terror in any species' voice before. The Vectari continued. 1,000 years ago, the Devourers swept across our galaxy like a plague. They consumed entire civilizations. They left nothing behind but dead worlds and empty space. When they finished, they went to sleep. Now, they have awakened. Another alien stepped forward, a massive creature covered in thick gray skin. Lee knew this was a Saurian elder, probably over 300 years old. "We have calculated their path," the Saurian said. "They will reach human space in 18 months. Nothing can stop them. Nothing has ever stopped them." The screen changed to show star charts. Red lines marked the Devourer's previous path of destruction. Hundreds of solar systems were marked with black symbols, completely destroyed worlds. Dr. Park Jin-woo, humanity's chief xenobiologist, studied the data from his station. His face grew pale as he read the numbers. "Captain," he whispered. "According to this, they destroyed 12 different species. Each species had technology more advanced than ours." The Vectari spoke again. "We offer you salvation, humans. We have prepared refugee sectors in the far rim of the galaxy. If you leave now, if you abandon your worlds completely, some of your species might survive." "What about fighting them?" Lee asked. The silence that followed was deafening. Every alien on the screen seemed to freeze. Finally, a floating, jellyfish-like creature spoke. "Fighting the Devourers is not possible," it said. "We have the complete battle records of 12 species who tried. The longest any civilization lasted after first contact was 6 days. Most were destroyed in hours." Ambassador Yoon pulled up more data on her screen. "Captain, their ships are described as reality-bending nightmares. The technology reports say they ignore our understanding of physics completely." The Saurian elder's massive head shook slowly. "Their vessels appear from nowhere. Their weapons tear through any defense. They do not negotiate. They do not take prisoners. They consume everything and move on." "What do you mean by consume?" Dr. Park asked. "Everything," the Vectari replied. "They take the metals from the planets. They take the gases from the atmospheres. They take the energy from the stars themselves. When they leave a system, there is nothing, not even space dust." Lee walked closer to the screen. "You said they were asleep for 1,000 years. What woke them up?" The aliens exchanged glances. At least the ones with eyes did. "We do not know," the floating creature admitted. "Our deep space monitors detected massive energy signatures from their sleeping sectors 3 months ago. They have been moving ever since." "Moving toward us," Lee said. "Yes, our calculations show they will arrive at the edge of human space in exactly 17 months and 12 days. You have that long to evacuate." Dr. Park stood up from his station. "Can I see the technical data on their ships?" The Vectari hesitated. "We will share what we have, but it will not help. No species has ever understood their technology. It operates on principles that seem impossible. Share it anyway, Lee ordered. The data transfer took several minutes. Dr. Park's eyes widened as he read through the files. Captain, this is incredible. The energy readings alone are beyond anything we've ever measured. Beyond anything any of us have measured, the Saurian corrected. The ancients who built the great ring worlds could not stop them. The machine intelligence of the core worlds, with all their computing power, lasted only 3 days. Ambassador Yoon studied the evacuation plans the aliens had prepared. These refugee sectors are very small, she noted. How many humans could actually survive there? Perhaps 10 million, the floating creature replied. We know it is not many, but it is better than total extinction. 10 million out of nearly 20 billion, Lee said quietly. We are sorry, the Vectari said. But this is the only way any humans will live through what is coming. Lee looked around his bridge. His crew was watching him, waiting for his decision. Outside the windows, the vast alien fleet waited for humanity's answer. I need time to discuss this with Earth, Lee said finally. Time is the one thing we cannot give you much of, the Saurian warned. Every day you delay is a day less to evacuate your people. I understand. Give me 24 hours. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Lee's crew stared at the empty screen where dozens of terrified alien faces had been moments before. Captain, Ambassador Yoon said softly. In all my years studying these species, I have never seen them united like this, and I have never seen them afraid. Dr. Park was still reading through the technical data. These devourers, their ships don't just break the laws of physics. According to this, they seem to rewrite reality around them. Sir, called Lieutenant Kim from the communication station, we're receiving emergency transmissions from Earth. They want to know why the entire galactic community is sitting outside our borders. Lee nodded. Open a channel to Earth Command. Priority Alpha. As the connection established, Lee thought about the choice before humanity. Run and hide in the far corners of the galaxy, or face an enemy that had never been defeated. The face of Admiral Choi Sung-min appeared on the screen. Captain Lee, what's the situation? Admiral, Lee began, we have a problem. The biggest problem humanity has ever faced. As Lee began explaining the Devourers to Earth Command, he could not shake the feeling that the aliens were wrong about one thing. They kept saying nothing could stop this enemy. But they had never seen what humans could do when their backs were against the wall. Perhaps it was time for the galaxy to learn why humans had survived so long on a world where everything tried to kill them. Admiral Choi Sung-min stood in the war room deep beneath Earth Command, staring at a massive holographic display showing humanity's fleet positions. 3 weeks had passed since the alien warning, and the transformation had been incredible. Ships that had been exploring distant stars were racing back to human space. Civilian factories had switched to producing weapons and armor. The aliens watched it all with growing confusion. Admiral, said Engineer Kim Hae-jin as she entered the room carrying a datapad. The Vectari are asking again why we're not evacuating. They've offered to increase the refugee space to 15 million humans. 15 million, Choi repeated, shaking his head. Out of 20 billion. What do they expect us to do, hold a lottery? Kim set down her datapad and activated another holographic display. Sir, I've been working with their technical teams to upgrade our ships, but there's a problem. What kind of problem? They don't understand what we're doing with their technology. Kim manipulated the display to show a human destroyer being fitted with alien weapons. Look at this. They gave us elegant energy shields designed to protect civilian populations. We've modified them into concentrated barriers that can ram through enemy hulls. Choi studied the modifications. Where the alien technology had smooth, flowing lines, the human additions were sharp and brutal. And they have a problem with this? They say we're turning their defensive tools into offensive weapons. The Saurian engineer I'm working with actually asked me if humans had ever created anything that wasn't designed to kill. What did you tell him? That we had. But when something threatens our survival, we modify everything to kill. Kim pulled up another display. It gets worse. They gave us medical nanobots to help with evacuation injuries. Our scientists turned them into ship repair systems that can fix battle damage in minutes. Choi smiled grimly. Sounds like human thinking to me. Across the base, Colonel An Dong-hyun was having his own problems with alien advisors. He stood in a training facility, watching human soldiers practice close combat techniques. A group of Vectari observers stood nearby, their insect-like heads tilting in confusion. "Colonel," one of the Vectari said through its translator, "we do not understand why you train your warriors for ground combat. The Devourers have never landed on a planet. They destroy worlds from space." An wiped sweat from his forehead. "Because that's what they did to other species. But other species weren't human. We have studied the battle records carefully. No Devourer ship has ever descended into a planetary atmosphere. Your ground forces will be useless." "Maybe," An admitted. "But humans have a saying. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. If those ships do land, we'll be ready." The Vectari exchanged glances with each other. "Your species has many sayings about violence and preparation for war." "Yes," An said simply. "We do." At the diplomatic station in orbit around Earth, Nam So-young worked at her desk, officially cataloging humanity's final preparations for the historical record. Her real job was different. The aliens had asked her to document how humans faced extinction, thinking it might help future species in similar situations. What she was documenting disturbed her. "Personal log, day 21. She spoke into her recorder. "The alien observers are becoming increasingly agitated by human behavior. They expected to see panic, despair, or desperate evacuation attempts. Instead, they see enthusiasm." She paused, looking out her window at Earth below. Construction lights twinkled across every continent as humans built weapons, ships, and fortifications. "The Saurian observer asked me today why human children are not crying, why human parents are not spending their final months in despair. I tried to explain that humans don't believe these are our final months." The alien could not understand this concept. Nam turned back to her desk, where reports from across human space filled her screens. "Military recruitment is up 300%. Factory production has increased by 500%. Most disturbing to the alien observers, scientific research into weapons technology has advanced more in 3 weeks than in the previous 5 years." She pulled up a video feed from a human military base. Soldiers were practicing with new weapons, derived from alien technology, but modified in ways that made the alien designs almost unrecognizable. The Nebula Folk representative described human modifications to their technology as aggressively innovative. The Vectari called our approach terrifyingly creative. They seemed genuinely afraid of what we're doing with their gifts. Nam paused the recording and thought about her conversations with the alien observers. They had expected humans to be grateful for the evacuation offer. Instead, humans had politely declined and asked for weapons technology instead. Back in the war room, Admiral Choi was meeting with Captain Bae Hyun-soo, newly appointed commander of the destroyer Incheon's Pride. Bae's ship was the first to receive a complete alien technology upgrade, and the results were impressive. "How does she handle?" Choi asked. "Like a weapon that was designed to hunt," Bae replied with satisfaction. "The alien engines are 3 times more powerful than our old systems. But it's the weapons that are really interesting." Bae activated a display showing his ship's new armament. "The Saurians gave us plasma cannons designed for mining asteroids. We've turned them into ship killers. The Vectari provided us with molecular disassemblers for salvage work. Our engineers figured out how to use them to cut through enemy hulls." And the aliens' reaction? "They keep asking if we understand that we're supposed to be running away, not preparing to hunt." Bae's expression grew serious. "Admiral, I think they're starting to figure out that humans aren't like other species." That evening, engineer Kim Hye-jin returned to her quarters exhausted. Her alien assistant, a tall Saurian named Kes, had asked to speak with her privately. "Kim Hye-jin," Kes had said in his slow, careful way, "my people have been spacefaring for 12,000 years. We have seen many species face extinction. None have behaved like humans. How do other species behave? Kim had asked. They accept their fate. They grieve. They spend their final time in spiritual contemplation or desperate escape attempts. They do not, Kes had struggled with the words, they do not sharpen their claws. Kim understood what he meant. While other species prepared to die or run, humans were preparing to kill. Dr. Park Jin-woo worked late in his laboratory, analyzing the final piece of data about the Devourers. He had been studying their technology for weeks, and a disturbing pattern was emerging. Computer, display Devourer ship analysis section 12, he said. The holographic display showed the strange, reality-bending characteristics of Devourer vessels. But Park was beginning to see something the aliens had missed. It's not impossible technology, he muttered to himself. It's technology that exploits psychological weaknesses. He pulled up the battle records of the 12 extinct species. Each had followed similar patterns when facing the Devourers. They had tried to understand the enemy's capabilities. They had attempted to negotiate. They had sought to defend rather than attack. Park realized that the Devourers had never faced a species that approached problems the way humans did. They had never met a species that responded to the unknown by trying to kill it. His computer chimed with an incoming message from Admiral Choi. Dr. Park, report to the war room immediately. We've received new intelligence about the Devourer's current position. As Park gathered his research and headed for the war room, he carried with him a growing suspicion. The aliens were right about one thing. The Devourers were unstoppable. They just might be wrong about which species would do the stopping. Outside, his laboratory window, the lights of human civilization blazed against the darkness of space. But these were not the desperate lights of a dying species. They were the focused, purposeful lights of a species preparing for war. The galaxy was about to learn why humans had never met a problem they couldn't solve, usually with violence. Captain Bae Hyun-soo felt the Inchin's pride shake as it dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system. Around him, 200 other human vessels materialized from the darkness between stars. They had arrived 3 days early, to the Devourer's predicted intercept point, hoping to gain some advantage. "Contact," called Tactical Officer Lee Na-young from her station. Multiple signatures appearing on the far side of the system. Bae moved to stand behind her station, watching as her screens filled with impossible readings. "What am I looking at?" "I'm not sure, sir. The signatures are wrong. They're showing up as solid objects, but the mass readings don't match the size indicators. And the energy signatures?" She paused, checking her instruments again. "Sir, these readings suggest the ships are bigger on the inside than the outside." Through the main view screen they could see them now. Dark shapes moved against the stars, but they hurt to look at directly. The human eye seemed to slide away from them as if the brain refused to process what it was seeing. "All ships, this is Admiral Choi," came the voice over the communication system. "Remember your orders. Do not attempt to understand their technology. Just kill them." "Sir," Lee Na-young reported, "the alien observers are requesting permission to withdraw at a minimum safe distance." "Denied," Bae replied. "They wanted to document humanity's last stand. They can document it from here." The Devourer ships moved closer, and now the human fleet could see them clearly. They were vast, dark vessels that seemed to bend space around them. Where normal ships had smooth hulls, these had surfaces that twisted and folded in ways that made no geometric sense. "They're beautiful," whispered one of the bridge crew. "They're abominations," Bae corrected, "and we're going to destroy them." The first Devourer weapon fired. A beam of impossible energy reached across space and struck the human destroyer Soul's Vengeance. The ship didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist, leaving only empty space. Where it had been. "All ships, open fire," Admiral Choi commanded. 200 human vessels unleashed everything they had. Modified alien plasma cannons, converted mining lasers, and experimental weapon systems all focused on the approaching Devourer fleet. The results were immediate and shocking. Several Devourer ships staggered under the assault. One of them flickered, its reality-bending field wavering. "Target that one," Bae ordered. All weapons on the flickering ship. Incheon's Pride and a dozen other vessels concentrated their fire. The wounded Devourer ship suddenly snapped back to normal space, its impossible geometry collapsing into conventional dimensions. "It's hurt," Lena Young reported with excitement. "Whatever they're doing to bend space, we can disrupt it." Across, the human fleet tactical officers were making the same discovery. The Devourer's seemingly impossible technology had weaknesses that could be exploited. On the bridge of the command ship Eternal Soul, Admiral Choi watched the battle with growing amazement. "Dr. Park, are you seeing this?" Dr. Shin Minho, who had replaced Dr. Park Jin-woo for this mission, studied his readings frantically. "Admiral, their technology isn't actually breaking physics. It's using principles we understand, but in ways that most species wouldn't think of." "Explain." "They're creating localized space-time distortions. Most species would try to understand the theory first, then develop countermeasures. We're just hitting them with massive amounts of energy until something breaks." Another Devourer. Ship collapsed back into normal space, then exploded under concentrated human fire. The remaining enemy vessels seemed to hesitate. "Sir," Communications Officer Park reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the lead Devourer ship." "Put it through." The voice that came through the speakers was unlike anything humans had ever heard. It spoke in mathematics and harmonics that bypassed the translation systems and spoke directly to the mind. "New species. You fight incorrectly. You do not follow the patterns. Why do you not fear us?" Admiral Choi looked around his bridge, then activated the response channel. "Because you're not scary enough." The response seemed to confuse the Devourers. Their ships stopped advancing and began defensive formations, something the aliens had never seen them do. Captain Bay saw the opportunity immediately. "All ships, prepare for close assault. We're going in." "Sir," his executive officer protested, "no species has ever attempted to board a Devourer vessel." "No species has ever been human," Bay replied. The Incheon's Pride accelerated toward the nearest Devourer ship, followed by a dozen other human vessels. As they approached, the enemy ship's reality distortion field tried to push them away. "Lena Young, can you punch through that field?" Bay asked. "I can try, sir. Routing all power to forward shields and ramming us through in 3, 2, 1. The destroyer slammed through the distortion field like breaking through a soap bubble. Suddenly they were next to the Devourer ship, close enough to see its impossible surface writhing and shifting. "Boarding pods away," Bay commanded. Armored Marines led by Commander O.J. Sung crashed through the Devourer ship's hull using modified mining charges. What they found inside defied description. Corridors that existed in more than 3 dimensions. Rooms that were larger than the ship itself. "Don't try to understand it," O commanded his Marines. "Just find something important and break it." The boarding action succeeded beyond all expectations. Within minutes, the Devourer ship was drifting helplessly as human Marines systematically destroyed anything that looked important. Across the battle, more human ships were attempting boarding actions. The Devourers, for the first time in their recorded history, began to retreat. "All ships pursue and destroy," Admiral Choi ordered. "Do not let them escape." The human fleet chased the fleeing Devourers across 3 star systems, destroying ships that had been considered unstoppable for thousands of years. On the observation deck of the Eternal Soul, the alien ambassadors watched in stunned silence. The Vectari representative turned to Nam So-young with an expression of shock. "This is not how civilized species conduct warfare," it said. "No," Nam agreed. "This is how humans conduct warfare. Your people board enemy vessels while they are still fighting. You destroy technology you do not understand. You attack without attempting to communicate or negotiate." "Yes. This is madness." Nam watched as another Devourer ship exploded under human fire. "This is Tuesday." The battle ended with the complete destruction of the Devourer advance fleet. Not a single enemy ship escaped. The human fleet had lost 18 vessels, but they had done something no other species had ever accomplished. They had defeated the Devourers in open combat. Admiral Choi stood on his bridge, looking at the debris field that had once been humanity's greatest threat. "Dr. Shin, begin analysis of the wreckage. I want to know everything about their technology." "Sir," came a report from the communication station. We're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Confederation fleet. Put it through. The familiar face of the Vectari ambassador appeared on screen, but its expression was no longer one of pity or concern. It was fear. Admiral Choi, the alien said carefully. What have you done? We won, Choi replied simply. No species has ever defeated the Devourers in direct combat. In 1,000 years, no one has ever been human, Choi interrupted. We're going to study their technology, reverse engineer their ships, and then we're going hunting. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Outside the view screen, human salvage teams were already dissecting Devourer vessels with the same efficient brutality they had used to destroy them. Dr. Shin looked up from his preliminary analysis. Admiral, this technology is incredible. With modifications, we could build ships that make our current fleet look like paper boats. Choi nodded, but his attention was focused on something else. Communications. Open a channel to Earth Command. Tell them to prepare for offensive operations. We're not waiting for the Devourers to come to us anymore. Sir? We're going to their home territory. It's time to end this threat permanently. As the human fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, carrying with them captured Devourer technology and a hunger for more battle, the aliens finally understood what they had done. They had not saved humanity from the galaxy's greatest threat. They had just introduced the galaxy's greatest threat to a species that thrived on violence. Fleet Admiral Kang Ji-hoon stood on the bridge of the new flagship Terra's Wrath, watching as his fleet emerged from hyperspace in the heart of what had once been Devourer territory. The ship beneath his feet was a hybrid of human engineering and captured Devourer technology, capable of bending space in ways that would have been impossible just months ago. Admiral, reported Intelligence Officer Park Yoon-ji, we're detecting massive structures in this system. Artificial constructs on a scale we've never seen. Kang studied the tactical display. Floating in space around a dying red star were structures the size of moons, their surfaces covered in the same reality-bending technology the Devourers used for their ships. Those are their shipyards, said Dr. Shin Min-ho, who had been studying captured Devourer technology for weeks. According to the data we extracted from their vessels, this is where they build their fleets. Not anymore, Kang said grimly. Tactical. Prepare for bombardment. I want those structures reduced to scrap metal. Sir, called Lieutenant Kim Young-soo from the communications station, we're receiving multiple distress signals from the outer system. They're from other Devourer fleets. Kang raised an eyebrow. Distress signals? From the Devourers? Park Yoon-ji worked at her station, translating the alien transmissions. Admiral, they're calling for help. According to these messages, human fleets have been attacking Devourer territories across 7 different sectors. The tactical display updated to show the broader strategic situation. Red indicators marked human fleet positions throughout what had been Devourer space. Everywhere humans had gone, Devourer installations were being systematically destroyed. Outstanding, Kang said with satisfaction. All fleet commanders are following their orders perfectly. On the observation deck, Nam So-young continued her documentation of human military operations. Though her official role had changed, the alien observers were no longer interested in recording humanity's final moments. Now they were trying to understand how humanity had become the galaxy's most dangerous predator in just 4 months. Personal log, day 120. She spoke into her recorder. The Galactic Confederation has requested emergency sessions to discuss the human problem. The same species that begged us to evacuate are now asking us to please stop our military operations. She paused, watching through the viewport as human assault ships systematically dismantled a Devourer space station. The aliens had built the station using impossible physics, but human engineers were taking it apart with brute force and creative violence. The Vectari ambassador described human tactics as unreasonably effective. The Saurian elder called our approach terrifyingly practical. What disturbs them most is that we're not just defeating the Devourers, we're learning from them. Below on the ship's lower decks, teams of human scientists and engineers worked around the clock to reverse engineer captured Devourer technology. What they were discovering was changing humanity's understanding of physics and warfare. Commander, Jae-sung led another boarding operation against a massive Devourer battleship. His Marines had become experts at fighting in spaces that didn't follow normal geometric rules. Remember, he told his team as they prepared to breach the enemy, don't try to understand how their corridors can be longer than their ship. Just focus on finding their command center and shutting it down. The Marines nodded. After dozens of boarding actions, they had learned to ignore the impossible architecture of Devourer vessels, while other species would spend precious time trying to comprehend the alien geometry. Humans simply adapted and moved forward. The boarding pod punched through the enemy hull, and O's team poured into the ship's interior. The corridors twisted in ways that hurt to look at, but the Marines had learned to navigate by instinct rather than sight. "Contact front," called Sergeant Lee from the point position. Devourers defending the passage. For the first time, humans were facing the Devourers in direct combat. The aliens were tall, pale creatures with too many joints in their limbs. They moved in ways that seemed to phase in and out of normal space. "Standard tactics," O commanded. "Don't try to predict their movement. Just fill the area with bullets." The human weapons, modified with Devourer energy principles, proved devastatingly effective. The alien defenders fell back, their reality-shifting abilities useless against the overwhelming volume of fire. Within an hour, O's team had captured the ship's command center and taken several Devourer prisoners. As the Marines secured the vessel, O opened a communication channel to the flagship. "Admiral Kang, the ship is ours. We've captured intact navigation systems and what appears to be their equivalent of a library." "Excellent work, Commander. Transfer the prisoners to Intelligence Officer Park. I want to know everything about their operations." Park Yoonji had become humanity's leading expert on Devourer psychology through her interrogations of captured aliens. What she had learned was disturbing, but also revealing. "Admiral," she reported after her latest session, "I understand now why they were so successful against other species." "Explain." "The Devourers don't win through superior technology. They win through psychological warfare. Their ships appear impossible because most species can't conceive of attacking something they don't understand." Kang studied the psychological profiles Park had compiled. "But humans can." "Yes, sir. The Devourers have ruled the galaxy for millennia by exploiting the fact that civilized species try to understand their enemies before fighting them, but humans attack first and ask questions later. And that's why we're winning." "It's more than that, sir. The Devourers have never faced a species that could learn from combat experience. Every other race they've fought has had to start from zero each time. But humans adapt during battle. The proof of this adaptation was evident throughout the human fleet. Ships that had been upgraded with basic Devourer technology were now sporting improvements that their original builders had never imagined. Human engineers had taken alien physics and weaponized them in ways the aliens never considered. Captain Bae Hyun-soo commanded one of these hybrid vessels, the newly retrofitted Incheon's Pride. His ship could now phase through solid matter, bend space around itself, and deploy weapons that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "Tactical," he called to Lee Na-young. "Target the Devourer command ship. Use the new reality disruption torpedoes." The weapons that launched from his ship were human engineering at its finest. They used Devourer space-bending technology to exist in several dimensions at once, making them impossible to defend against with conventional shields. The enemy command ship tried to phase out of normal space to avoid the attack, but the torpedoes followed it into whatever dimension it fled to. The explosion that resulted existed in all realities simultaneously. "Target destroyed," Lee Na-young reported with satisfaction. "Sir, the remaining Devourer ships are retreating. Let them go," Bae ordered. "We want survivors to spread the word." This was part of human strategy now. Always leave some Devourers alive to tell others what had happened. Fear was a weapon, and humans were learning to use it as effectively as any alien ever had. Back on the flagship, Admiral Kang received reports from human fleets across Devourer space. The pattern was the same everywhere: complete human victory, captured technology, and fleeing enemy survivors. Sir, reported Communications Officer Park. We're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Confederation. They're requesting immediate peace talks. With the Devourers? Kang asked. No, sir. With us. Kang considered this. Tell them we'll talk when the Devourers are no longer a threat to anyone. Admiral, Park Yunji said quietly, I don't think they're worried about the Devourers anymore. Through the view screen they could see the wreckage of another Devourer fleet drifting in the darkness. Human salvage crews were already at work, stripping useful technology from the destroyed ships. Status report on our offensive operations, Kang requested. Dr. Shin Min Ho pulled up the strategic display. Sir, we've destroyed or captured over 60% of known Devourer installations. Their fleet strength has been reduced by an estimated 75%. At current rates, we'll have eliminated them as a threat within 6 months. And our own losses? Minimal. We're losing ships, but we're building new ones faster than we're losing them. The captured technology is allowing us to construct vessels that are far superior to anything we had before. Kang nodded, but his expression was thoughtful. Park Yunji, what do your prisoner interrogations tell us about the rest of the galaxy's reaction to our operations? Sir, the Devourers are terrified. They're calling us the species that cannot be stopped. They're abandoning systems rather than face human fleets. And the Confederation? Park's expression grew serious. Admiral, they're starting to use the same language about us that they used about the Devourers. Words like unstoppable and consuming everything in their path. Kang looked out at the stars, where human fleets were spreading across space with the efficiency of a plague. Are they wrong? The question hung in the air unanswered. Outside the ship, the lights of human civilization were growing brighter, fed by captured alien technology and the resources of a dozen conquered worlds. The galaxy was learning what it meant to face an enemy that had evolved alongside war itself. President Han Soo-jin stood on the bridge of what had once been the most feared ship in the galaxy. The massive Devourer flagship Reality's End now served as humanity's mobile command center, its impossible architecture tamed by human engineering and practical modifications. Around her, the remnants of the Devourer's once mighty fleet drifted in space as wreckage and captured prizes. In 8 months, humanity had accomplished what the entire galaxy had believed impossible. They had not just defeated the Devourers, but completely broken them as a fighting force. Madam President, called Chief of Staff Lim Jun-ho, the Galactic Confederation delegates have arrived. They're requesting permission to board. Han looked through the vast view screen at the assembled alien fleet. Ships from every major species in the galaxy had come to this final meeting, but they maintained a respectful distance from the human vessels. The same aliens who had once offered humanity refuge now treated human space as a quarantine zone. Permission granted, but they come aboard unarmed and with minimal escort. As the alien delegates made their way through the ship's corridors, they moved with the careful steps of creatures entering a predator's den. The Reality's End had been modified extensively since its capture. Where the original Devourer technology had created impossible spaces, human engineers had installed practical additions, weapons storage, tactical centers, and manufacturing facilities. The conference room where Han waited had once been a Devourer meditation chamber that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously. Human architects had flattened it into normal 3-dimensional space and filled it with practical furniture. The alien delegates entered slowly. The Vectari ambassador moved with the nervous energy of an insect trying not to attract attention. The massive Saurian elder kept its head low in a gesture that might have been respect or submission. The floating Nebula folk representative hovered near the back of the group. Welcome, Han said simply. Please sit. The Vectari spoke first, its voice carefully modulated to show no threat. President Han, we come to discuss the current situation in what was formerly Devourer space. You mean human space, Han corrected. The silence that followed was telling. In 8 months, humanity had claimed over 300 star systems, including every major Devourer stronghold. The speed of human expansion had shocked even the most Ambitious galactic powers. Yes, the Saurian elder said slowly. Human space. We wish to discuss the future arrangements for galactic governance. Han smiled, and the expression made several aliens step back. What arrangements did you have in mind? The Nebula Folk representative floated forward. The Confederation has prepared a proposal for peaceful coexistence. We suggest clearly defined borders, mutual non-aggression treaties, and joint oversight of former devourer territories. Joint oversight, Han repeated. Interesting. Who would be doing the overseeing? A council of species, naturally. The Vectari said. With humanity as a prominent member, of course. A prominent member, Han mused. Not the leading member? The aliens exchanged glances. The Saurian elder cleared its throat. President Han, humanity has proven itself to be remarkably effective in warfare. However, galactic governance requires different skills. Han stood and walked to a wall display showing the current state of the galaxy. Red zones marked human-controlled space, which now included nearly a quarter of all inhabited systems. Tell me, she said without turning around, what happened to the species that tried to govern the Devourers? That's different, the Vectari protested. The Devourers were a force of pure destruction. Humanity is civilized. Are we? Han asked, finally turning back to face the delegates. Let me tell you what we've learned about the Devourers. She activated the room's holographic display, showing data compiled from months of interrogating captured aliens. The Devourers ruled this galaxy for over 3,000 years. Do you know how they did it? Not through superior technology, not through overwhelming numbers. They did it through fear. The display showed psychological profiles of the extinct species the Devourers had conquered. Every species they defeated followed the same pattern. They tried to understand their enemy first. They attempted negotiation. They sought defensive solutions rather than offensive ones. Sound familiar? The alien delegates remained silent. The Devourers were successful because they had never encountered a species that responded to unknown threats by trying to kill them immediately. Admiral Choi entered the conference room, followed by several other high-ranking human officers. The aliens seemed to shrink as more humans filled the space. Madam President, Admiral Choi reported, the final Devourer stronghold has fallen. Intelligence estimates put their remaining fleet strength at less than 5% of original levels. Survivors? Scattered across the Rim territories. They're no longer a meaningful threat to anyone. Han nodded and turned back to the alien delegates. So ends the reign of the galaxy's most feared predators. The question now is what comes next. The Vectari leaned forward desperately. President Han, surely humanity doesn't intend to replace the Devourers as a galactic threat. Threat? Han seemed genuinely surprised. We're not threatening anyone. We're offering protection. Protection from what? The Saurian elder asked. From the next Devourers, Chief of Staff Lim answered. Did you think they were the only predator species in the galaxy? Our xenobiologists have identified at least 12 other potential threats in unexplored space. The aliens looked at each other with growing alarm. The Nebula Folk representative spoke carefully. And humanity would handle these threats? We would eliminate them, Han said simply. Just as we eliminated the Devourers. But we would need resources, ships, technology, territory to stage our operations from. The true scope of humanity's plans was becoming clear to the alien delegates. Humans weren't content to just defeat the Devourers. They were positioning themselves as the galaxy's permanent guardians against existential threats. The Confederation has concerns, the Vectari said slowly, about concentrated power in the hands of a single species. The same concerns you had about the Devourers, Admiral Choi asked pointedly. That's different. The Devourers were destroyers. Humanity builds things. Yes, Han agreed. We build weapons, we build ships, we build armies, and we build peace. Through superior firepower. Dr. Park Jin-woo entered the conference room carrying a data pad. Madam President, The analysis of Devourer technology is complete. We now understand how they maintained control for so long. Share it with our guests, Han instructed. Dr. Park activated the holographic display again. The Devourers weren't just conquerors, they were ecosystem managers. They would arrive in a system, destroy any species that might become a threat, and leave the others to develop under controlled conditions. The implications hit the alien delegates immediately. The Devourers hadn't been mindless destroyers. They had been galactic gardeners pruning away any civilization that might challenge their dominance. For 3,000 years, Dr. Park continued, the Devourers prevented any species from developing the technology or mindset necessary to threaten them until they met humanity. And now, Han said quietly, humanity has that technology and that mindset. The conference room fell silent except for the hum of ship systems. Outside the view screen, human vessels moved through space with predatory grace, their hulls gleaming with modified Devourer technology. What do you want from the Confederation? The Saurian elder asked finally. Nothing you aren't already giving us, Han replied. Recognition of our territorial claims, non-interference with our military operations, and acceptance that humanity now manages the galaxy's security. And if we refuse? Han smiled again, and this time even the human officers in the room seemed uncomfortable. Then you'll discover why the Devourers called us the species that cannot be stopped. The alien delegates left the meeting in stunned silence. As their ships departed human space, they carried with them the knowledge that they had created their own worst nightmare. In trying to save humanity from the Devourers, they had unleashed something far more dangerous. The Devourers had been content to rule through fear and occasional destruction. Humanity ruled through constant vigilance and the promise of overwhelming violence against any threat. President Han stood alone in the conference room after everyone had left, looking out at the stars that now belonged to humanity. Her personal communication device chimed with a message from Earth Command. Deep space sensors have detected unknown signatures in the Andromeda approach vector. The message read, request permission to dispatch investigation fleets. Han smiled and activated her response channel. Permission granted. Standard first contact protocols apply. As human fleets began moving toward the new potential threat, Han reflected on how much had changed. The galaxy had warned humanity about an unstoppable enemy, never realizing that they were describing humanity itself. The Devourers had ruled through fear, but humanity would rule through something far more effective, the absolute certainty that any threat to galactic peace would be met with swift, overwhelming, and creative violence. The galaxy was safe now, whether it wanted to be or not.